we have a son who lives in Bridgeville. Everybody like this. And has they're partnering with the YMCA. I don't know how that works as far as cost sharing and all this kind of
Right,
stuff.
now you've got a
but
city.
Let's look into it.
Yeah.
And let's see what Nike might want to do, or somebody else that,
Right.
even, even TGE perhaps. Someone who would want to put a stake in there so that they get their name on the cardio room or on the conference room or something. Let's at least look at that before we throw it to the voters. And it's, I think it's wise to do a little more research before we put it to voters. Because this is a lot of money. I think it would be so cool to have that. And I went to the one in Hillsborough, which is similar. Like, wow, I could see this getting a lot of use, and it was packed. The place was packed at 10 o'clock on a Friday morning.
Well, and most of the places that have built them recently, okay, add money extra, for just like our Go Bond stuff, okay?
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, like in Redmond, they built, okay, it talks about the Redmond. Well, they already own the land, so that didn't cost them anything.
Right.
Part of the parks plan, and they had like a Go Bond thing, so they had enough money to just build it. They didn't have to increase anybody's property.
Right.
Okay, yeah,
Okay? Same thing happened in Hillsborough. So that
okay,
what happened there is those buildings got built because there was money to build those buildings. It already existed. Okay?
yeah,
Not that you could say, oh, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start from ground zero and we're gonna charge everybody this amount.
makes a difference. Yeah, and that's something I didn't appreciate about Hillsborough.
Yeah, when you start finding out how did they have
How
it?
did they get there, right?
And places that have had, like there's a community center in Sherwood that is hooked up with the YMCA.
Okay,
And the YMCA is losing money doing that.
really?
Okay, and so they're kind of like dancing for, maybe we should get out.
Yeah,
Mm.
didn't PSC or PCC, one of them closed down their pool, couldn't afford it anymore,
Yeah,
too.
So that,
Pizza.
the bottom line is it's just a significant amount of money for,
Yes.
Yeah.
facility that you may or may not use. I mean, from my standpoint, I run outside. Doesn't matter if it's raining, doesn't matter if it's.
Yeah, I don't have a choice.
It's ice and snow, but then I'm not gonna drive to a community center. So I mean, would I use the center? Well, if it existed, yeah. But you're right, when I look at my assessed value, which sounds like it's like your assessed value, I mean, that amount is gonna increase my property taxes for the next 20 years. Now, I'm 74, so I'm not gonna live in my house for the next 20 years, but somebody is, okay?
Yeah.
No,
It's
Yeah.
a significant amount of money.
that's
Yeah.
what you're running.
and then on top of that, if you decide you don't want to run in the rain, you want to drive there to run around the track, you're gonna pay to do it too.
Yeah, and there's nothing worse than running around a 400-meter track
Oh,
when I can be out in the.
well, there is. It's running around the flight deck of a ship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've done that.
10 and a half laps for
Gee.
a mile. Yeah.
We went through the Panama Canal once. Went down and got in Costa Rica and then got on went through the Panama Canal, and then we got out into the Atlantic. The wind picked up and there was a kind of a big storm. And I would run on the deck every day.
And the ship.
And there were
would come
guys
up,
there.
they'd slap
And
you.
so I went to
fall
go,
away
and I
from
got
you.
up in the morning, I got my running clothes on. It's kind of shitty out, but I'll see what. And there was the guy standing at the two doors you could go to get on that deck to run
Yeah.
around. He said, you can't go out. Why can't I go out? I said, well, first of all, I bet you can't run into this wind. And second of all, if you're running with the wind behind you, it'll take you off.
Can't
the
stop.
ship. And the guy said, I'd show you,
Oh my
but I tell you what, I want you to help me see if you can open this door. We were pushing against the wind. Cool, it's pushing as hard as you can open. So I think what you should do is go upstairs and get on the treadmill. Well, I go upstairs and I get on the treadmill and the boat's going like this, right?
Yeah.
So I tried running and you bam. So
Oh, yeah.
holding onto the treadmill, I said, screw this.
Forget it.
I'm gonna go have some coffee.
You want us to sit?
Any place you'd like.
Okay. You want to all sit together? We can. It doesn't matter to me. Chair, so.
More chair.
I mean, you go over here. Sure, I'll stay here. If we can push around too, yeah, everybody, we can get in. Oh, you're. It's a big table.
We need to get a few more chairs.
And they're there.
They're there.
Okay, there.
Megan, you have a shirt?
I do. I'm here. Okay. Hopefully everybody's surviving the heat okay, and the fair, oh my goodness. Luckily, it's not 103.
Yeah, Tony.
Oh, 90 sounds good to me at this point, right?
Exactly.
Okay, we're recording on.
Are we ready to go? Okay, so first thing that we're going to do is introduce people. And I'll start with myself. I'm John Linnman, and I'm a co-chair of this board. And this is the 5th term that I've had here doing the Parks Board, so.
My name is Stacy Epstein, and I'm newly appointed to the board, but I'm an old member in all senses of the word.
Yes, we got.
Spent 4 years on the board in the past, so, yes.
I'm Mary Baumgartner, currently council president, formerly the Parks Board liaison and former member also. And I'm here to listen and support board.
I'm Karen Kellogg. I'm new to the board this year, and it's been a great experience.
Chris Owens, been on the board for 3 years or so and live in Robinwood neighborhood.
Megan Big John staff.
Oh, quick. I am Kevin Bonington. I'm going to be the council liaison going forward, and I'm really excited to work with you guys. So,
I think it'll
do cool things.
go to Tara real quick, too, right?
Tara Lincoln staff.
And then Vicky popped in.
Hello, I'm Vicki Handy. I'm sorry I'm running late.
She's in charge.
I'm co-chair. John, the direct board, and again, apologize for being a few minutes late.
I'm Diana.
Hi, I'm
Hello,
Diana Lavery. Hi. And I've been on the Parks Board for almost a year.
Great, good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Has everybody seen the agenda for tonight? Are there any changes?
Move to approve.
Okay.
A second.
Second, okay. All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Summary notes. I actually read those. They looked okay to me.
Good job. Karen appreciates it.
Yeah. I was falling asleep at the computer, but yeah. Any comment? Anything addition? Ready? Shall we approve them? We got it. Settle.
Motion's approved.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay, they're approved. Okay, we're up to community comments.
Yeah. I believe we have 2 tonight, right? 2 people. Yep. And Heidi, did you want to go first?
Sure.
Or you guys can decide however you want to do that.
Yeah, I'll go first and we'll segue in. Yeah,
Sounds good.
my name's Heidi McKay. We have Down to Earth Forest School here at Marietta Sioux Park. We've been here for 3 years. I started this program 8 years ago for my son to develop nature connection. And it has just organically, I never said I wouldn't just have a program like this, and it's just organically emerged. People from the community have begged for me to continue to add grades. And I have, over the years, it used to be just me and one parent that would come and help as a work trade to offset their tuition. And now it's grown, and I employ 12 individuals, and we have 56 families. And we've now been at Marietta Sioux Park for 3 years. And because we are there so often, we realized that we'd really like to give back to the land, to actually tend it and care for it and offer stewardship opportunities for our children. And that kind of tipped off this conversation about our place there and our school operating there. And so we're here tonight to just kind of share the dynamics. I know, I'm assuming that everyone was able to read our one-pager prior to the meeting. And so I don't really have too much to say. I was going to kind of open it up for discussion. My partner in crime is Audra, and she was a public school teacher for a long time before she came to work for us. And she just has a few quick things she'd like to say. And then also Karen.
Okay. Okay, just as a reminder of our protocol, our community comment section is 5 minutes per person or issue, and we don't enter into dialogue unless the board has specific questions. And so I've just made a note of when you started, and we'll just continue.
Trying to be quick. Yeah, I do want to honor your time as well.
Great.
Great. So like Heidi said, I was actually a geologist before I went back to school to get my master's in teaching. And I taught in public school for years. And unfortunately, I noticed how terrible public school truly can be for a lot of students. And so I was disillusioned and I left. And I came to Forest School and brought my son in as a preschooler because I wanted him to have a different option. And through that, I've really seen how important it is for students to have nature connection. Everyone here probably agrees with that. That's not surprising. The important part is that we need to operate on public land. We need to be visible. We need to have the community members see what we're doing. We need to have the kids be part of a community in a forest. It's forest school. It's not park school. It's not, we're going to go play in the stream over here. It's like we want these kids to have a true nature connection, and Mary S. Young really provides that for students in this community and community members as a whole. And so we just really feel that this isn't the time to close down the school. Daycare, there's a daycare desert, a child care desert, early childhood education is hard to come by. It's not affordable for so many families, and we provide very low cost because it's on public land. That's what allows us to do it. And we want to give back. We want to be a part of the solution. We want to have the ability to use, our effort, our money, like all the things that we can do to help Mary S. Young or other public lands become available to people to do the sort of thing that we're doing.
Tim, did you want to add to that just briefly?
Yeah, I can be really brief. I am a father of a student who goes here. And when we were looking at kindergarten, we visited several. And one of the things that kind of struck us that made us walk away was it was like, oh, they'll get their own iPad, they'll do this. And I'm very much into technology, but I would rather not my child. And I had been looking, our child had gone to a farm's preschool, so we were kind of looking for something. This popped up. It's literally a 5-minute walk from our house, and it's just the perfect fit. My daughter loves it. She makes eye contact with people. She's full of confidence and knows she can walk through Mary S. Young Park and point out all the plants more than I will ever be able to. And it's one of the things that really, as part of the community and just the overall feeling of education, this is the right way for her to go, and something that I'm very passionate about and apparently emotional about as well. And it just has great meaning to me and the other families there. Yeah.
Thank you. Karen,
Sure. So my name is Karen Burig, and I am a board member of the Down to Earth Forest School nonprofit. And I think a couple of things that I really wanted to highlight is that we really see that the programming within the Forest School aligns so nicely with the Park Master Plan. There are many different elements within that Park Master Plan, such as providing youth an opportunity to connect with the park and supporting the region in this particular park, as well as opportunities for bringing in funding for parks. And so there's quite a bit of alignment with the Park Master Plan, which really connects us to this group, because we really want to be able to work with the city to figure out how we can make this work. It has been working for the past 3 years, and we want it to be able to continue. So that's what we're really here in partnership, and we'd really like to be able to have your support as we move forward in these conversations with the city or perhaps with the city council, because I know it's not straightforward. It isn't clear within all of the rules and regulations what direction to go. And so we're looking for your support, and we're hoping to move forward. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Are there any specific questions from the board?
Got a couple. So you operate during the school year, so September to June.
Correct.
Do you meet anywhere but the park, or is it all done in the park?
It's all done at the park. Our business address is a different location, but we meet at the park.
Okay, so all year round, all winter long.
So we are September through June. So we operate our school during non-peak park hours,
Mm-hmm.
9 to 2, Monday through Thursday. We take a 3 month off in December, and we're not there in the winter or on Fridays.
Okay. And then the second question is,
Yeah.
if not Mary S. Young, is it Mary S. Young or you fold? I mean, is that where you are?
It's Mary S. Young, because the nature of that particular piece of land, well-loved piece of land. It already is. It doesn't have the same dynamic as like a metro piece of land. And so because of that, it feels like a very good fit for a program such as ours.
But
Go ahead.
The
but
answer
are
is
there all?
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
If we have to move, our program would essentially have to completely change. And we would probably lose the majority of our families
And our funding.
and our funding.
Yeah.
And we don't take a bunch of money home either. We're a nonprofit. Like, how much of our money goes?
90% of our money goes to
payroll. To payroll.
To pay
So we are
our
not,
employees.
this is not something that we are, getting cash flush with, right? So it is something that, like, this park is perfect. It is centrally located. We have precedence of being there for 3 years. We've built up this community. If we move it out somewhere else, like to Tualatin or somewhere else, like, our families can't move with us. Some might, but we would essentially be done or have to figure out something completely different. We would no longer be a Ford school.
Well, I want to say, I mean, I ran outdoor school for Lane County for a number of years, outdoor school counselor, scout leader for 15 years. I've been to so many nature camps. I am so 100% aligned with everything that you're trying to do. It absolutely speaks to literally decades of my life. That being said, I know running outdoor school, it was finding location that met the needs of the operation. And I know that that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. I'm real familiar with those spreadsheets. And I have no doubt that the kids love your program. As a Parks Board member, however, I can't help but think that our park isn't really set up to host a school, basically.
Yeah.
And so, I would really like to hear from staff as to the basic regulations around this. I mean, I've seriously, so many camps, I can't even give you an count. All of them, every single one of them was at a camp facility.
Yeah.
Even day camps. So I can't imagine, unless it's a camp out, which is a very unique situation, how an ongoing school program could be housed in a park.
Yeah.
So and I also know that Mary S. Young is leased land that has a lot of regulations to it. I am so aligned with what you are doing. I don't know how you're doing it. Seriously, I don't know how you could legally set up to do that in that type of environment. So I hate to put you on the spot.
No, you're fine.
But what are some of the regulations around this? And usually we just listen to community comments, but we have a very large group here.
Yes.
For this, and as a Parks Board member, I'd really like to hear, some of the other facts around this, especially since this is something I used to run. It's like, how are you guys doing this?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Before you go, Megan, could I just say,
Please do.
I mean, You guys have probably seen me.
I have seen
I
it.
spend a lot of time in the park.
You're a runner.
Yeah, I'm a runner and I'm also the guy sort of in charge of trails, this sort of stuff, and yeah, kind of build the trails. So I get to see your group all the time, okay? And they're great, okay? You can tell they're having fun, they're laughing, they're doing stuff, and they do things good in the park. I mean, if you look at where they're having the stuff now, when ladies are gonna be hanging from the trees and stuff like that, all the mulch that's there that, we dumped over there from got spread by you guys. And that was, your kids did it, your parents helped out, that sort of thing. So if there's a way to make it happen, I would think it would be good, because I've seen you guys and you're real positive for the park. I think it's positive for the community. But I just don't understand what she's gonna talk about, about how we can make that happen. So city council will have to look at that. And if we can make it happen, I think it would be a good thing.
Yeah, and I'm gonna piggyback on top of that. I see the kids Monday through Thursday, we're there with our dogs, and there's no greater group of engaged kids. I mean, you can tell that this is a totally different thing, and these kids just thrive, and they're outgoing, and they talk, and they want to ask questions to complete adult strangers, and I think you guys do a really good job. And then I'll be the dead weight. My husband always says, that's like so awesome, but how do they get to do this in the state park? And I'm like, I don't know. So clearly there's complications.
No pressure, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is not. This has probably been my
Yeah,
least favorite day out of, I mean, this is the hardest thought I've ever had to be put in. And so I just got cheery with these guys because it is not a good place. It's not, it doesn't feel great to be here. Just to say that.
Stacy,
Yes,
had
please.
a comment as well. Well, I too want to say that I'm completely aligned with your mission. I love it. I'm at Marion Young Park almost every day as well, and your kids pet my dog, and they're interested.
I didn't even know we had all these board members.
I mean, they are an engaged group. It's really incredible. The question I had, is there a similar group over at Tryon Creek, which is also
I can speak to that.
yeah,
Tryon Creek is a state park as well.
right, that's what I have.
Adjacent to the Tryon Creek State Park is a commune that has kind of been grandfathered in. And out of that community living
Yes,
situation has emerged a couple different nature preschools.
Okay,
Currently, there is a nature preschool that has a program adjacent to Tryon, but that goes into Tryon.
okay,
And I don't know what their agreement looks like,
yeah,
but I know that their program is not housed within the park.
yeah.
And to your question, I know Megan and I have different answers to those questions. So I mean, if I get an opportunity to speak, also in the hot sheet that I sent you out, there is some more detailed information to an answer to your question. But I just want to honor your time.
Thank you.
So, I am coming, so as I've told Heidi and her staff, I completely support what they're doing. I think it's great to have this alternative education, having a natural resource background and trying to create a program in Lake Oswego to engage youth into why we need to protect these natural areas. I am 100% on board. So as a citizen, as Megan, and even as the Parks Director, the program is fabulous. The part that it's hard, being the person with the city hat on, right, is I have a role of protecting the land, following the deeds, and looking at what our zoning is. So the way this came about, I didn't go looking for it. It came to me as there was an issue about the business license and a question about the conditional use of the park and was this allowed. So this was one of the things that got landed on my desk when I started. To find out. So through all that investigative work, I gave you guys a brief summary of that. I tried to reach out in this great learning, honestly, for me, starting new, to know what was our relationship with state parks? Where was their jurisdiction versus ours? What rules applied? How did this school get started? And so a lot of that back history is kind of gotten us to where we're at today. And it has not, and I keep saying that because my heart is feeling for this group, right? They've built this business here. We should not have allowed it from the get-go, to be honest with you. That is where we started, right? But we did, as many agencies did during COVID, adjusted rules to get people, whether it's businesses, yoga studios, not in West Linn, but from my experience in LO, we did these things to give people opportunities to continue their business and to allow activities outside. And so that's where this had originally started, right, with a group of 10 kids. Now, I say that, look at where they're at, 10 kids to 55 now, impressive, right? And so what happened over time is we just continued to, we don't have an agreement with them. They rent the shelter for $60 a day right now currently for the days that they're there. So that's the fee that they're paying. We normally don't rent shelters out during the winter, usually because of demand, right? As you guys see, there's not as many people out renting. Also because of staffing levels, we staff up in the summer for that, right? And so through all this discovery, what came out of it that started from the very beginning is the conditional use, what the zoning is for Mary S. Young. I had to learn a lot about planning, and I'm still learning, so I may not have all the answers, but I've been everywhere trying to make sure I understand it. So all of our parks properties are zoned R10, which is technically residential, and they do have where you can get some conditional uses for, you'd have to go through a conditional use process, and a school would be one of those conditional uses. So just put that in your mind, and that's ultimately where we started, and that's where we're at this exact moment. But through this discovery, I reached out to state parks and said, okay, you own this land. We're in the process of getting a new lease agreement with you for our 25 years. What would you do with this? And I found out that they have their processes, but they don't overlay with because we're leasing land. We have agreements that we won't be disturbing the land. We won't be building structures, all these legally things, but essentially that we're going to honor the land as the deeds are in place. If we go to build something or develop something, we seek their permission to make sure it meets what the deeds are and their requirements are to move forward. So when explaining the school, and again, this is not a deciding factor. State Park doesn't want to be in the middle of this, nor should they. I mean, they really shouldn't, but it was kind of good to know what their idea of the land was. If a school were to come to a state park that was not Mary S. Young, whatever state park it would be, the school would have to apply for a special use permit because it is not listed as a park use. And that's where that whole deed thing was getting kind of muddled and why it was getting confusing with the questions I was answering. Then at that point for state parks, and this is all to my understanding, is that then at that point, they would probably not just apply to this individual school, they would go out for an RFP and ask for schools to apply if that were to be the case. And in that situation, they would be looking for different criteria that meet their missions and values. And so if this was their land and you had to go through that process, that's in a very tight, snapshotty description. So when I was looking at and trying to research, well, I'm like, okay, so with the deeds as well, it says that it's for intended park use and given to the state. If the state is saying that this is not a park use and you would need a special permit, it gets you back to, is this what the intent of the park is for? That is almost secondary, and that's why I wrote that secondary information, because none of that necessarily overweighs where we're at. But I think as a land manager, it's something to assess and know. And hopefully this will help for future of trying to figure out ways to yeses in other places or even upset Mary S. Young. So where it came down to, though, is talking again with planning staff, checking with John, the city manager, is that at the end of the day, we don't have a mechanism to say, you guys have a conditional use to be there right now. We don't. We granted them to finish the end of the school year. I wish I would have realized this sooner, and this process took forever to figure out. So right now, there's not a process for a temporary permit to be there, from my understanding. And that the worry is that if the city would be the one who'd have to apply for the conditional use permit, and then we would have to go into an agreement with the school for that, look at costs, look at, what the agreements would be. From the city's perspective, and I'm not just saying just mine, but that's why things like this start here and it can go up to council to make other decisions, because our job is to follow what is laid out with the rules, right? Is that when you look at what this is, it's not only is it state park land, it's all park land, right? If you grant conditional use for this school, does open it up to other schools and what other conditional uses would come up down the road. So you're looking at a bigger picture, not just Mary S. Young. And please know, it's not just your school. We're trying to look at what overall should this be and what was the intent of the land. And so that is where right now there isn't a mechanism to literally give you guys a conditional permit. It would take up to. I was going through the process. They were going to send it to me, but it would be an application that we'd have to turn in. It would end up going to the planning commission for the ultimate approval. I think you guys have seen that already. And then they would weigh in with staff, with the planning staff comments of what would be approved or not approved. So I've been racking to try to find, how do we get to a yes, right? How do we find a way to extend them the right to be there for a period of time to find a new location if there's not a means? And so right now, this is where I finally had to send that awful email yesterday to say, we're at our crossroads as far as what I am able to do as a director at this moment with what we have with our code in place. And that's where there's other review coming to you. Council has been getting, engaged with the letters and everything too, to figure out what the next steps are. And it's been my first as a director, and it's been probably one I'll never forget because of how hard it is, because I know the heart that you've given. I know what you're doing at the park, and it hasn't all been easy for our staff and for things going on there, as you guys have learned to grow from 10 to 55. And so we would want to have some agreements if things did move forward. But right now, the city doesn't see a pathway under our current zoning to move forward, and not with a lack of a big, huge heart of wanting to. So,
Can I just
yeah,
add a few
please go
comments
for it.
to that?
I
So
guess
especially
that's
this
the key.
permit effectively would make it so that our school would be the only, in that permit, they could say only one school. So it doesn't open it up to all the other schools then getting an opportunity. Especially if we had a land use agreement, if we came up with an agreement, it could say, it could specify Down to Earth Forest School is coming up with a land use agreement with Marriott Young. So it doesn't open the door to all these other programs wanting that, right? But as we go through the state part, if we're going down the state part, because it's hard for us to understand, are we going through the state part?
No, you're not.
Protocol, or are we going through the city of West Linn protocol? And if we're going through both, does Willamette United also have to do all of this permitting? Does AWOL have to do every other organization that offers programming in the park? Are they also having to go through all of these checks and balances? But if you are just saying that we are a school, then we would apply for a conditional use permit and go down that path.
The city, so that's where I think the confusion is had. I've made it clear a couple times that the state has nothing to do with this. This was in my investigation of trying to figure out what would the state do. So I'm just going to say very clearly, yes, and the state would have no permitting with you. You have to go through no permitting with the state.
So if we were to operate at Marriott Young, the city of West Linn would be the one.
Yes.
That would be our pathway.
Yep.
Okay, so we are putting that off.
It has been, yes. I was
Okay.
trying to explain why it's secondary when I was trying. Remember, I mentioned from the very first meeting that I would try to figure out what is the rules with the state. I was trying to understand if the state would be that, but I think it's also valuable for the Parks Board to understand that would be how the state manages their land. So for here, the bottom line is the conditional use, not the special
So for them
permit.
to do what they're doing now and continue doing that, who would they talk to in the city?
They need to have the city's permission and the city's desire to go, or the city to apply for a conditional use permit.
We need to be granted access to apply for a conditional use
So the
permit.
city has to apply for it
Yes.
to change the use of Marius Young.
So who in the city would make that decision? Would the council?
It should be the planning commission up front, I would believe, but I may be wrong.
But it's use of parks. And
It's
then,
100%.
Chair, I know that this wasn't actually an agenda item
For
for
sure.
community
Completely
comment.
understand that.
And I know that everything is resting on this. But I'm thinking the city is looking at their processes. We're hearing what the situation is, so we're informed. And at this point, need to support what the city, the city's responsibilities to the state and the city's understanding of their process policies, et cetera. So it seems like at this point, it just goes back to the dialogue that you're having. And I mean, as a board, we've been informed. Megan, as staff, do you want a specific recommendation from us? Or was this the point of information?
Well, this was just citizen comment, but I wanted you guys to
Mhm.
make sure that you had some history on it and be able to understand what we've been working through with the school. And so this is just citizen comment. It is going up to council already, which would be the next step forward as far as the city being asked to do something different. Mary, am I getting Mary and Kevin? Just to
Yeah, I
make
think
sure,
we're-
right? So I think, yes, and we have one thing that you haven't all seen, you've gotten one letter. There's a lot of letters that have gone up to council. I think I counted 27, which is pretty awesome. It's most of the
Soon to be
parents and
50.
families. Yeah, and I mean, again, I just can't emphasize enough, and I know it probably doesn't feel like it to this group, but please know has nothing to do with what the school is offering, what it's doing. It's that when you look at all of the people that use our park and how they do, we have a certain line we have to follow, and then council can change that if the rules and zonings are created by the community and approved by council and the planning commission. And so just wanting to, it's elevating to the next level.
But as a parks board, we could make a recommendation to the city council
Correct.
that
That is why we're coming here, so that you would do that.
That's up to your purview.
I want to make it clear that in doing so, we need to be kind of aware of the council's limitation under Chapter 11, Section 46, which is the most recent addition to the city charter, and it places restrictions upon what parks can be used. I'm sure parks board people know all about this, but in city parks there is a pretty specifically intended language about how parks can be used. I'm not saying that this would necessarily violate that, but it does come very close to the line, and we need to be careful about not crossing that line if we
I
come to
understand.
a solution there.
Yeah.
So I guess, I don't know, for you guys to decide, you can have more, it's up to you to have more discussion, to make a recommendation. Do you need more information? But this started as citizen comment. We can do whatever you guys want to do. So.
I think that we would need to have significantly more information and discussion. It probably needs to be an agenda item that is posted on the agenda for public knowledge outside of the.
Mhm.
So as chair, I'd like to recommend that we put it as an agenda item. I don't, board, do you feel like you
Yeah.
have enough information at this time to make an informed recommendation?
Well, I think we've got enough time between now and say the next meeting to get more information, because I have some questions to hold, but I guess I have a hard time accepting that we're at an impasse where it can't be done. It's because a couple of questions come to mind. So I think we have some time to ask some questions. I mean, I just did a quick look on their website, because I run into you in the park a number of times. I live about 100 yards from the park, but I didn't realize what it was. So I want to learn more.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth an agenda item for us, and I think we can perhaps offer the council maybe a recommendation, but at least some background and some ideas for
Synopsis
what
insights.
questions council might want to ask.
Yeah. I will say this, a hot sheet does have several links. If you look at it online, which can take you down several rabbit holes, which should answer many of the questions about our program. Yeah.
Casey, you had a comment?
I was gonna say, as the returning member, I'm new to this issue and I feel like I need more information
Yeah.
as well. But I also hear in this room a strong support of your mission and a strong desire to look for a way to get to yes. I mean, so please know that you've been heard and seen and valued.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. And we appreciate your time. I know that top of mind is this community center that you're working on.
No.
So we don't want to take.
kind of on the down already.
Yeah. Forget it.
But I do want to say that I appreciate your willingness to donate so much of your own personal summer evenings for us to be heard. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I don't think you'll find a group in Westland that is more aligned with your mission
Yes.
and your intent than the audience you're speaking to.
Yeah.
So You're with kindred spirits.
Yeah, I do appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
If I could really quick, just from the parent's perspective, I mean, we're 2 months away from the school starting, and if I were to have to try to find a place for my daughter to go,
Yeah.
that's just definitely a pressing issue.
Sure.
So
Yeah, we
it does have a somewhat of a timeline that if we can
I understand.
if we can help move that along or do anything, we are
Or if at the very least,
definitely.
we could have a temporary use of the park for one more year while we continue to negotiate, try to get to a pathway to yes. But if we could continue to come up with some sort of temporary agreement for our families so that we don't lose our base enrollment, we would be grateful for that. Yeah.
I understand the urgency.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're all supportive of it.
And
Well, it's just, it's, as Megan said, it's a really sticky situation.
Yeah.
It's something that we all value so highly.
Very much so.
Trying to fit it into, this really cool square you have here and trying to make a whole work for the square is where it gets sticky. So I can really appreciate Megan's journey trying to find all of the information on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to ask very hypothetically.
Yes,
This-
yes. Mhm.
Please don't take this as
No, I'm
an
an
offer
open-minded reader.
or anything.
Read it.
Yeah. If there were another place in the city
Mhm.
that, in my mind, I think might actually work pretty well. And it's a very special place to me because I grew up there playing there as a kid. So to offer it, it's a big thing. But look right here. You have the Wilderness
out of the
Park.
way.
Right?
Mhm.
Then you have the newish Sunset School.
Uh-huh,
There's the Sunset Park right here. So
Yeah.
you can access the Wilderness Park in 2 minutes flat going through here. And the park here is equipped with all the same facilities, shelter, bathrooms, all of that. Is that workable as well? Would another situation with that kind of access to an actual forest be unacceptable?
I think this is where the communication with the city staff, because I would imagine that we would run into the same issue.
Yes.
If that's
If it's about
Same.
zoning, if it's
Yeah.
about, a conditional use permit, if it really is about seeing if the city will partner on that conditional use permit, that same issue would be probably within each of the parks. But I do have an understanding that there are certain guidance about Mary S. Young, but
Yeah.
That's what I'm.
yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
just,
If we to avoid.
having run programs like that for years, there are standards that you need for the facilities, for the location. And I don't think our Parks Department is in a position to provide that.
ADA accessibility. Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's on so many levels
yeah.
that my heart is saying, let's make this happen, let's triple the size. And my head is saying, this isn't logistically a straight shot.
Yeah. I want to say that we've already been there for 3 years. So when we think about this, well, how could they ever do this? We already have done this for 3 years with minimal complaints. We've already shown you that if we're capable, we aren't growing our program.
It's done.
We're going to say
We
it.
can't grow it.
Yes, this is it.
It's not
We've
going to
capped
get
our
any
program.
bigger.
So when you think about maintenance, how will this happen? It's already happened. And it's already been very successful. A land use agreement would allow us to, for the small minimal complaints that are there, we would be able to, this is the first time they've ever come to light. So being able to address those and work in concert with maintenance to provide being a better tenant, we would love that opportunity.
All right. Well, thank you so much for all of the input tonight. And I want staff to know that, as always, we're very supportive of your efforts to make things work for folks. I'm also recognizing that they are way beyond the time allotted for this. And so, Megan, unless there's anything else, I'd like to go ahead and wrap
that'd be
this. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
No. Yeah, sure. No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Tara, are there any other comments?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And awesome program.
Thank you.
Seriously.
Thank you. You can contact me. I'm available.
It was fun to dive into this. So good. Seriously. My life. All right, so Megan, we have the opportunity to welcome a couple of new members to the table tonight.
Absolutely. So Stacy, who is back, I would like you to get to introduce yourself because I don't know if everybody knows the breadth of time that you've given and how you were here with the park master plan to help move that through. So if you want to just give a quick welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back home. I first joined the Parks Board because I have 3 generations of family living here. And because I've gone to every single park in West Linn and I love them so much. So that's why I first joined. And yes, I was Vicki and I and John, quite a few of us went to the master plan.
Yeah.
I would say ordeal, but let's just call it a process. A process. So yeah, and it was a great experience for me. I'm kind of a professional volunteer. A lot of you that know me know I volunteer in several other places as well in West Linn. I really, really love this community. So I'm glad to be back and working with you all.
Wonderful.
Good to have you.
Thank you.
Glad to have you back, Stacy.
Thanks, Vicki.
Nice to finally meet you.
Yeah.
We talk a lot.
And we have a new liaison, Mary.
I had no assignment.
Yeah.
None.
So they didn't tell you that the Parks Board was the low code.
No, it's the best.
It's a jam assignment.
Yeah.
I'm very excited
So,
about
yes, thank you, Kevin, for joining our team.
yeah, this wrong meeting. I want to be clear
Yeah.
that I guess we didn't consider this beforehand, but I'm also the liaison to the Economic Development Committee. These meetings overlap. I don't think that's going to be a problem for the most part, but if I do come and go
Okay.
every once in a while, that will be why. But otherwise, I'm really excited to work with you all on this. I think West Lynn's parks are probably what sets it aside and above all the other cities in the area.
Yep.
Lake Oswego is very similar, but we have very wonderful parks here, and the opportunity to participate.
That's where we
in that
stole Megan
and-
from. Like I
Yeah. Well, and on that note, what we may consider, I was talking with Para, is that we may want to move the council feedback or council updates maybe to the earlier on the agenda in case he would have to go, because I think it is beneficial for council to share, like what Mary would did, what was going on with council and if there's any issues that we need to address. So if that would be okay, we just shift that in our agenda.
Absolutely.
I mean, we could even move up the intro, if there's any crab updates too, however you want to stack that.
Why don't we just go to council now?
Okay, so just that might be helpful, and not that I didn't interrupt with you to say we have council updates, but there's just that we could be, and we took a long time with the last topic.
I think
so.
what makes the most sense, just from how I'm trying to work this, is if we do any updates from me as early as possible here, and then presumably EDC goes longer, and I would be part of them towards the end of their meeting. But obviously, when we have really big situations like we do now, emotional ones that really call for our presence,
Yeah.
want to be here for that.
You'll have more fun here than home.
Really?
I don't know.
It wasn't bad for 2 city council members to hear what we heard.
Well, and
Yeah,
that's why
that
I was
was
happy
good.
Mary came because she had some of the earlier communications with the school, and so I really did appreciate her volunteering to come in today. Yeah, I know that's we derailed your conversation, but just, there's been some tears. It's to inherit this has not been, great at all. And so thank you for hearing them out today. And it's been a lot to learn too, and trying to figure out, and also figuring out my role and making sure that people know that we're supportive of them, but figuring out what our role is and then what the next role is up for council or for others to decide. There's been a lot of bending of rules over the years, or no rule, and I don't mean rules, but just things enforced. And I've been asked to start to slowly straighten those out and working through that. And so
Baptism by fire.
it has been definitely. So thank you for being supportive. I really want to have I feel like I have a good working relationship, even though the really hard things, I know this impacts their business. I know it impacts their families. These conversations started in, Heidi reached out to me in February. We got connected in March. So the very first meeting, we talked about this conditional use concern. So it's been kind of ongoing, but I've been really trying to find an avenue through the avenues I can, right? I could just say we can make an agreement, but I actually can't. From my understanding of my role, somebody may tell me differently later.
But the city can make.
No, but that's why I just want to make sure, but
There's a lot
again,
of steps.
just wanting to make sure to make sure that you knew that. So it's been a big learning curve too, and talking with the other departments. So I was really happy they came, and they've been very kind working through this because it was really disrupting what they're trying to do. They made a business model of working there, right, and under not having a long-term agreement. And so it kind of puts us in a pickle, and we also obviously want to see them be successful wherever that is, right?
Yeah.
Here, there, wherever. So.
Well,
Do you know if they've looked at other options? Do you know if they have?
I've asked, there's no other school in Oregon. Heidi, if you look at her sheet,
Yeah.
they've done, I have letters of support for Lewis and Clark College, from, this is where we're not supposed to be derailing the conversation, but please definitely look at the information. It's tricky. There's no other schools around, other cities or state parks, county parks that are doing this, because there is, what's the intent of the park, right? Open for primarily for public. So that doesn't mean she's a trailblazer here. To be honest with you, they're doing it in Washington and other states, but that it's pretty special. We know that, but trying to how to make it fit is the thing.
well, if I can help support you in any way, I have a lot of experience in these types of programs, and as much as I'd love to see this in every park, I'd love to see it in every city. And I don't see any way legally this is going to fit. And I don't mean to be a naysayer in any way. But the requirements, I can see how it can flourish during COVID, because rules were suspended. But now you're responsible to uphold the rules. And as much as I love it, and I want to say, yes, you bring those kids and enjoy it. It's just gonna be if you find a way through this, you are a pretty crafty person. Back to our welcome. Kevin and Stacy, we do have every year, we as a board publish, this is new, kind of a synopsis book.
I attached in the last agenda. There was a lot of attachments on my last agenda.
Yeah.
I will make
It's
sure.
there.
You didn't get it?
No, I got
That's there.
I didn't even know. I had to look up the meeting time.
So that's supposed to be upstairs. I will make sure that you're
Okay.
included in that
You had a
email.
few other things to do.
Well, but actually that usually happens upstairs.
Yeah.
I just send the park for it.
I just knew that there'd be a meeting this month.
Well, gee whiz, thank you for showing up.
I just said, oh yeah, I've got to be here.
That's one thing I can always answer for you very quickly.
But it's the
And you got yours, right?
I'm trying to figure that out. I have to go through a lot of other emails that you might have.
Okay.
Okay, Kevin and Cindy, it's a 2024 Parks PRAP
Okay.
plan. It's a document, it's like 13 pages long. It has a bunch of links in it.
Okay.
It explains how we work, what we focus on, and has an executive summary of the master plan. Keep us grounded. And so I strongly recommend that you take a little bit of time before our next meeting to go through it, because one of our efforts is that we stay grounded in our principles, and that we make advisory comments to city council, in alignment with the master plan. And so it's really important that people are familiar with that. I know Stacy's familiar with it, but
Glad to see it being used. I mean,
pulling it
we
out.
really
Invite you to be a parks advocate and warrior for our city. And it really helps if we are all standing on the same foundation.
Absolutely. I may have actually read it already in my adventures with the tugboat, which I'm sure everyone is well aware of. But I'm not seeing it in my.
So that will be, so when I send out emails, just so you know, it's part of an overall parks advisory board email that goes out that IT and upstairs create. So I will make sure to forward, I can't even open it up to see who's included. So
Okay.
I will make sure to forward that plan that I updated your names in it, so you're all in it.
Okay.
It's pretty neat what we created, but it's essentially, I have it in here, but it ends up essentially being an earlier one. But it's a book and it's really great that it helps as the board transitions that Vicki created it, that some of that information transitions too.
Great.
I
Thank
hope
you.
Karen found it very helpful when you first, it's a lot of information.
Yeah, had to be in small doses.
But it's a lot, right? So,
Thank you.
yeah,
Right.
thank
I'll
you.
upload that for the next meeting.
Yeah, I will make sure to send it over to you.
Well, it's so hard that, for example, tonight's discussion, if I was here just sharing my opinion, I might say one thing, but I'm not here just sharing my opinion. I have to represent the city and the master plan. And that's a different role. And so if we
The
come in.
decision-making process of whether or not they stay in Mary S. Young is not going to be in this board.
No.
But we could make a recommendation to council that we think if you can find a way to do it, you should do it. I mean, that's the way I look at it. I mean,
We may be able to shape their considerations. Here's some questions that we recommend the council considers, things like that, that, might lend, pathways towards some kind of accommodation. And if it fizzles out, then we know we will have done our due diligence on it.
It is an accredited school, correct?
That's what, I don't know that. They have been, it's in the information. I don't know.
I would just encourage you, there's also
yeah, it is. It's a
Department-
nonprofit organization.
Department of
as a
Education.
school?
So I don't know whether it's credited through the,
And I think the
I
part
don't
is,
think it is.
I think the part that I'm trying to get, and this is what I have gone down so many rabbit holes, right? That the point in case today, that's why I think the state parks part was really confusing for Heidi to understand, because I was trying so hard to understand and looking at it. Vicki just said, I'm not looking at this as Mary S. Young, I'm looking at it as our park system. And when you start making changes to that, could there be a domino effect? Does it meet, should this group be granted that instant school there? Should it, there's no answer to no. It's just those are the questions you ask as you're managing a suite of properties and looking at, well, if you do this here, how does it affect other things? It may not affect anything, but when you're looking at a greater picture, you have to ask yourself those questions. And so right now, where I am personally stuck is the land, how the land is intended to be used by the zoning. That's where it is. So, right, the intent of it, or even just actually our zone, what it is zoned as. And so then the question is, should the city be changing that use? We're talking about Mary S. Young today, but when you look at that, this is something new that could come in and we would have these other conversations down the road. And that doesn't mean to not do it or to do it, but that's where the city is looking at it currently. And when I say the city, it's talking with John, talking with other departments, say, where at this moment in time, we don't feel that it's the best interest to make this change. And it has nothing to do with the school. It has everything to do with changing the use of the park.
Right.
And so it's a hard place to be because it feels logically, yeah, you want to make this happen. I also have to remember we didn't create their business plan.
Right.
And we didn't, but they're grassroots, right? And Heidi, please definitely look at her information. It's really, it is quite amazing what they have created and her background and her philosophy, what she's built with her team. So, how do we partner with them to provide camps in the summertime with that same philosophy? Is there a way to, I'm trying to how do we partner with them if we can't be their space. I'm trying to go from if we're their space and if we can't be their space. And so, yeah.
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 Can I say
Yeah.
something? I don't know if this is,
Diana.
I don't know if it's appropriate now. Excuse me. I feel like Biden. I'm coughing. Anyway, I don't know if you guys saw his conference right before our meeting. He was coughing. But anyway, a few things come to mind. Is this an appropriate time since we've just had them come and we've read the information or at least had an opportunity to look at it? Should we just go around the room and have like one or two questions or concerns that are top of mind to us in terms of wearing our PRAB hats and what's best and, you know, kind of issues to think about related to this decision, or should we table that for another meeting?
We need more.
How much time do we need to talk about the community rec center?
Not a lot.
Well,
Yeah.
we have been asked by council for some questions. So I think this is again another one of looking at a park as a whole and what the community has asked for and where we're at. I think that's another piece it shouldn't take very long, but I do want to go over, but we have been asked to find out who there was individuals, whether it's the park board, there's individuals and steering committee who may want to work together to find alternative funding. And so that's the ultimate question at hand. That's what council is interested in looking at doing, potentially making a committee of, and maybe Roy, since the mayor suggested maybe having a summit. So I have information to share. It doesn't have to be lengthy, but know that that's the ultimate question. Is PRAB wanting to be a part of looking at for additional potential funding options to see if we can lower the tax burden based on the increased interest? Or does PRAB not want to? And are there individual, we're trying to see where that weighs. Because council, we're not going to the ballot in November. Thank you for you two. Stacy and John showed up for council, so thank you for being there. And seeing where can this potentially go? And so, so it isn't dead in the water. It isn't just blown past. I think for some people it is, but council has asked us to find out, are there citizens who are wanting to help support, look at funding options, whether it's private or others or other, so.
I think the difficulty about that, when I look at the polling, is that when we asked the question, what if we could find $20 million and knock it down to $45 million? It didn't change how people viewed it.
Right.
Okay, so I mean, it made it less, but it wasn't like, oh, it's less enough for that to be an issue. And if you look at other facilities that have recently been built, most of those were in settings where there was available money, sort of like the Go Bond thing. I mean, there was money that the city had that was sitting there, and they said, well, we have this money that we didn't spend on whatever, and that's how we built it in Redmond. So there's a number of places that have been built new, but they didn't start from ground zero like we were in terms of money.
Right. There's that
So-
Go Bond.
Yeah, so the bottom line is for us, I think, is that, I mean, you would have to find $65 million to make people happy to want to have that. I mean, finding $20 million, which I think would be very difficult personally, doesn't seem to make any difference of the yes and no's.
So for that, I mean, you were talking to me, and I'm like, Diana suggested we do a quick round robin on the nature school. It does sound like we have a discussion. I think that I'd like to honor Diana's suggestion. Can we quickly go around and we'll make note on any comments or questions regarding the school, and we can put a pin in that. And then go to the community rec center. So can we do a quick round robin? Diana, why don't you start?
Okay, well, I just was, as we were discussing it, I thought of things, so some of these might be repetitive, but, you know, the question is, somebody already asked, is the school accredited? I think we need to find that out. Number two, how about the criteria with the relationship with Mary S. Young family and that contract and, you know, whatever our relationship requires of them and the use of the park, considering Mary S. Young's family. And then also, nobody answered when she brought up how the soccer, you know, I forget what it is, ASO or whatever, and their use of the field space, how that is allowed, and do they need to go through some sort of a, request for use? And then lastly, has the city attorney taken a look at this? I mean, in terms of our liability, that's something that I think of immediately when the space is being used by an offsite, school, for example, this situation. If a child gets hurt or injured or God forbid killed, then the deep pockets are the city. So I just, that's something that came to my mind. Of course, it would be a tragedy for all, for multiple reasons. It would be horrific. But I also think about wearing again my PRAB hat. What is the liability that we already are currently facing, and what does the city attorney think about it in terms of the legality of it regarding the use of the park and the liability that then the city and the park assumes if we allow it under any circumstances or terms?
Excellent. All right, let's just go around. Chris, what would you add?
So, I think I'll pile on that same issue that Heidi brought up about AWOL, which I actually have two grandsons in that AWOL tiny fly thing this week, and so they are conducting a school in the park for a week, and that's okay. So where is the dividing line? And if it is, in fact, that's why I asked the question at the beginning, do you have another base? Would it make a difference if they had another building that is their school, and that they, like she described for that, the schools using Tryon Park, they're based outside the park, but they go to the park every day and use the park? Is that different? And does that change how the city would view that? So it may be something that they have to find a building that can serve as a classroom, or, she said they use a business address off base, but Megan's handout said that you were using Mary S. Young as their
We
business.
changed that.
Okay.
It was originally when we first started this.
So I can see that being a red flag, but if they actually had a school and they've got a bus, we know, so anyway, that was my question. It's something that should be explored. Probably already has been, but that was my question. And yeah, when the other thing again with Diana's point about the Mary Young family, that's what I thought was the state restrictions and so forth were based on the family's conditions for the use of the park. And again, then if we look at, well, park purposes, again, I say, well, how is that tiny fly school okay and this one not? I don't understand the differences there. Those are the kinds of things I want to do some of my own research on.
I'm happy to answer these if you want.
Okay, well,
But that's why I didn't know,
You can answer.
I didn't know, depending on time, did you want me, and I don't have all the answers, but it depends on where you want to go. So just let me know. And if you want to keep asking your questions, then I can answer what I know.
and I'm fine deferring those until later. Those are just the questions
I would like to suggest to the board that we condense some of our regularly scheduled updates, unless you need board input on the fair or anything.
Just show up.
show up,
Yeah, and show up, yeah.
show up by stuff.
This is clearly the issue with a sense of urgency attached to it, and I would hate for us, just remember that we don't have a meeting in August. So,
And nor does council.
we will not have a recommendation if we don't discuss this until September. So
Let's talk about it.
let's go ahead and I'm gonna suggest, but I'd like to ask the board, is that okay?
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and discuss this and get it off the plate for Megan. Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be good, and I think the school, the students and the parents need to know sooner versus later.
Yeah, that's who I'm the most worried about. I mean, you could see fear in Tim's face.
Well,
like,
Yeah.
he's looking, where am I gonna send my
where am I
kid?
going to send my kids
Yeah.
to school?
Exactly.
I think for
Yeah.
me, I mean, I'm a community supporter of that school. I think it's amazing, and I think what they do is amazing, and I think those kids are amazing. Again, I see it every day. That's just my little personal bias, and I think so many times and yes, of course, there's rules and there's laws and there's policies and there's procedures, but sometimes I feel like, but wait a minute, something isn't right. And sometimes you need to fight for something, or at least give it your best chance of fighting for something to explore your options and, where can we go? And I think, and maybe it's just me, I'm tired of follow the rules. Like Kevin knows, I'm so freaked out about this whole R10 zoning thing for the housing. It's like, well, that's the rule. That's what the rule. And I think sometimes you need to explore things further. And I would be willing to happily do that. I mean, I just think you can't always, I'm not saying we're hiding behind rules, and I know there is the master plan and the parks plan, but like, sometimes something is the right thing, and maybe you just need to work your way through it. Right?
Stacy, thoughts? My number one thought is the one that, I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Diana brought up is the liability issue. I think that's a tremendous issue, just tremendous. Even if they have insurance, we have insurance, it's still a really huge issue. No matter how many people are insured, if something terrible happens, the city will be held. And so I have a real concern there. And the second concern I had was around ADA requirements. Schools, they're a nonprofit, but the whole issue of the ADA accessibility, we struggled with in the past through PRAB. We've talked about that in our parks in the past. How can we be more accessible? And I think that's an important goal to have, but for them as a school. And finally, I do hear you, Megan, wanting to get to yes. I think everybody would love to get to yes, but in spite of the issue of rules, there are rules and there are things that can't be hammered away. They just can't sometimes. I need more information, certainly. But those were my two issues, liability and maybe there's a way for them to do day trips in the park. Day trips work a lot for a lot of schools. Day trip in, partner with the city on that, partner with us on that. I think that might be the place in the middle, maybe. Those are my thoughts. John?
Yeah, my feeling is that this board is not going to make any
No.
decision
No.
on what's
Right.
going to happen. So my bias is, since I work with these kids all the time, and I work with their parents, spreading mulch all over the place and doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I talked with a number of kids over time on the trails, what we should do on the tails, what we shouldn't do on the trails, that sort of stuff. I like having them there. So my bias would be, as a member of this board, even this evening, to say, we recommend to the city council that if you can make it happen, make it happen. Because they're going to look at things that we're not going to look at. Okay. I mean, I'm the zoning and all that other kind of stuff. We're not going to say, I know how to fix the zoning. And I don't know whether they can do it, whether the city would want to say, we're going to make an exception to the zoning so that we can do this one thing. That seemed to me that would be very simple, but it might not be. But I think as a board, I mean, most of us are quite in favor of these people doing what they're doing. So my bias would be to take another 2 months before we say, well, we think that the council ought to look at this and make a decision if they can. That's what I recommend. We like the fact that it's there and it's been there for 3 years quite successfully. We'd like for you to decide, whoever gets to decide, we recommend it to council. We'd like to see it there. That's what I meant.
Well, I'll share my 2 cents. I love it. I love the kids there. Love everything about it. I think that having school with close to 60 kids there every day from 9 to 2 puts a burden on maintenance staff. It puts a burden on the park. And it is so burdensome on legal exposure. It really makes me nervous. It's not even the codes, the zones, all of that. That's not what somebody else is going to look at that. Okay. I think that
we need to be really aware of how people are using the parks and scheduling the time and space. If we do that, if this group has this, I think it needs to be quantified much differently. It needs to be come with a significant more burden. And I think it puts a burden on the city to become competent in a whole realm that we don't, it's not our business to run a school program. I mean, if it's a full school program, 9 to 2 full school program, it's, I think that there's a lot of legal exposure with that. And again, I'm speaking from a person who has had to put together these camps. I know what the requirements are. I don't know, there's no way they ever could have done this outside of COVID.
Yeah.
No way. Not through the Oregon Department of Education, I mean, there's no way. This
Yeah.
was a COVID. And so I love it. Think it's great. I don't think that this is the place for it. If it is the place for it, I think that we need a heck of a lot more infrastructure around it. It has to be vetted by attorneys. And I would also be checking with any regulatory standards with Department of Education, because this is definitely, it's not a camp, it's not a team, it's a school. And so there's a big burden that comes with that. If we can keep it, hallelujah. But I know the resources of our city. I just don't know how you would ever manage that. We would have to literally add some staff, add a regulatory body, add maintenance. I mean, there's tons of infrastructure that should be in place to make this work if we do it. And that's just coming from somebody who is as big a proponent of this as anybody could possibly be. It's just
Reality.
the reality is, I think it really puts the city at risk. So
Yeah.
that would be my 2 cents.
Yep.
So
I concur with your 2 cents and add 2.
I have 4 cents now.
So, can we say, PRAB would like to advise city council, applaud the mission and the purpose of this camp, recognizing that they have done an excellent job, and advise city council to, do due diligence on the legal and regulatory impacts before making a decision. I don't know, something along those lines.
And then what happens in September, right?
Yeah. So I don't know if you want me to answer a couple of those questions that
Go
have
ahead.
been brought up. So I think what really the key is they had, and I think Heidi, I was still surprised that she didn't, and that's again, when you're doing emails with a ton of information, how there can be misunderstanding. I could have misspoken how I was writing it, but soccer is an approved sport for Parks and Recreation. Fields we got permission from the state park based on what the deed was to be able to build those fields. That is an approved.
Yeah, they were interesting before we
Sure.
took
Well,
over. They were tilted about.
They were
that.
asking about the amount of time that they are versus the amount. And again, it's not a either or, it's that there's a school versus Parks and Rec activity. AWOL. Now, again, as you notice at the very bottom of my line is that we are looking at what we do in the park to make sure we're doing the right thing there too. AWOL is a short-term camp. They call themselves a school, but it is not. It's a camp. They're there for a short duration. Even say they're there for 3 weeks, it's a short duration compared to how many months that the school is there. That was even a definition from the state parks. But we're asking ourselves, we've already talked about, I'm just going to throw it out there, our Boo event, which is highly popular. Should we be doing that there? We're actually looking at We're looking at changing it because the amount of staff time that goes into it for one, but we're asking ourselves, like, we're kind of on notice too with what we're doing. So verifying that what we're doing is honoring those things as well. So the soccer, the question was the length of time. Heidi had asked if they're able to be there, would they need a special conditional use permit from state parks? No, because that's a park use. The other question had insurance. I know that they can provide insurance. This is again where some of the things of policies and procedures that will be improved. Our current shelter reservations don't require that you provide insurance.
Oh,
There's no deposit requirement. Oh, yeah.
no, I reserved them and you're right. That's,
Mhm.
but,
So I know, but just trying to go back, yeah, for them, so they have been handled by the city as just a shelter reservation. So even the comment that I got recent that they're being terminated, their permission to be there is being terminated. We don't have a shelter reservation. We don't have an agreement with them at all. So there is no termination, right? It's like there's nothing. So again, now the intent was that they would be able to be there, right? So the intent was there. The city attorney has not been brought into this part yet because of the insurance. I know that they would have it. We didn't know what that would even be. Currently, it's 2-3 million aggregate to be able to have any insurance, but they may be able to get that no problem. So I know if they were to come in, that would just be a requirement. It just would be. The dividing line answered that question, I believe. They were looking at other facilities. They were looking at potentially seeing if they can operate out of Robinwood Station or potentially the church that's right across from Walmart there. Those two would need a conditional use change. Both of them would. Robinwood Station would have to come from the city as well because it's our building. And then part of their condition would say that they're using Mary S. Young as a part of their school. If they didn't list that, they would be out of their conditional use. Red tape. The liability is my biggest concern all around as well. The the day trips to the park that is potentially a possibility, right? So say they were out of a place that they could operate, that we'd have to come up with some requirements. Heidi mentioned that they're just learning of issues with the park. We have a long range of emails from the last 2 years of issues that have occurred.
Really?
Of lack of monitoring, of digging holes, leaving messes in the bathrooms.
Yes.
So yes, yeah.
They are a little sloppy in the bathroom.
So, I mean, showing up and finding nature play within a sink, so there's things that we have to put parameters in where this nature play, again, huge proponent of nature play, hugely, where those boundaries would be. When I asked about other locations, I had mentioned maybe Metro, and they said, well, again, and Heidi would be able to articulate this, but it's kind of like Metro is the Yoda Park, it's kind of like a museum because their goal and intention is to build habitat for the wildlife.
Right.
So humans are engaged in those spaces very strategically and not to be out playing. So at Mary is saying if we were to find it, yes, you would find those boundaries where some are less for nature and where places that they can have to play. But one thing I had mentioned is they were starting to build some things. When they leave at 2 o'clock, that park is ours to manage. So whatever's built there, it's open to the public. If a hole is dug at that shelter for fun that's not thought of, if someone trips, then it's our liability. And so having to figure out, I think those things that we could put, if something moved forward, we'd have to put a very strict what we can do there so we have an understanding for our own liability, but also when we rent it, somebody fell in a hole that reserved it the next day that we didn't know was there. Now, who doesn't want a kid to dig in a hole, right? But we have to look at how the park is being operated. Do you want to look at spaces that would be optimum for them?
Yeah, I saw one of my walks, one of the drinking fountains there was a leak, and I saw a woman slip in it. So that's when I first, this was a couple of years ago, and I phoned right up to get it.
Yeah.
But liability.
So I do know Heidi, and she'll have more information, but she has said that they would be willing to figure out those are things that they would work with. They have plans that other schools have used in Washington. Some of those parameters, as you heard her say, it's a land use agreement usually.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're leasing it. It's like it's supposed to be that they're giving back to the land too. And I know that's 100% their intention, as John is even saying, of working with it. But there's just some things. That is not why we're here as far as some of the things that weren't working, but there were some things that were not working that we'd have to tighten up if to move forward. Quite a few. and just understanding. Like if a mower's out in the field, we don't want kids running around all around it because lacrosse balls go flying and there's nobody watching. So, but I know those are things that we can work with them on. I know that. So that's where it's been really tricky. So if there's more information, I'm trying to figure out what I can send you more of. There's gonna be more coming from council, more conversations. I have meetings set up next week with council to figure out individuals to get them informed with what I know. And I don't know everything on it, right? We need Darren from our planning manager to understand if there's more nuance. Checking with, you know, what is this? Is it our responsibility to verify that they're an accredited school? I mean, think about that, right? Are we leasing them the space? Are we having a land agreement? Those are some bigger, you know, so I haven't gone that far down the rabbit hole because I've been trying to get them an answer for September, and I keep reiterating, and probably overgave my heart to say I want to find a way, but kept saying you need to start looking. Like I've asked about Willowbrook, and what about they're endorsed by, and Heidi probably has all the reasons why those don't work, right? Cost and red tape, right? But even Lewis and Clark highly supports them. And again, if they're listening, you guys, I know you have these answers. I know they're probably all listening on YouTube right now.
Yeah.
So I was just like, gosh, Lewis and Clark, they totally endorse the program. How is there not a college that is not taking this on? I mean, I was just trying to, but there's obviously reasons of why they're here. And so trying to understand what she's championing is so awesome.
Well, it sounds like all of us are very supportive of her and the program and the mission.
Yeah.
But the
Well-
city needs to check with the attorney, and I'd also check with the risk manager. With your insurance, and let them make the decision, because we can't make that decision.
I want to be very careful about basically endorsing their program for one reason. I haven't been there. I assume it's fine and even good, but I kind of take issue with the idea of really saying, well, we support and endorse what they're doing as a city, so much as just
And that's why
enabling it or not.
support the mission of their program. We support the mission of their program.
I think that that's fair. I want to be careful about that.
No, good point, Kevin.
And I would say that it's not necessarily your responsibility to be extremely concerned about making this work for them by September when they know they've not been operating with these things in effect. I almost said agreement, but again, there is no agreement. Their one sheet there says being asked to leave their home, but that's an interesting term. I guess it's where they base themselves out of, but there's nothing in place to really concretely tie them to that. And I kind of worry that if we found a way to make it work for them, and I know I didn't say this an hour ago, I said the exact opposite thing to you. What is stopping 50 other schools from deciding they can do the exact same thing, the exact same basis in any or all of our city parks? Maybe it's not bad intention behind that, but that's not the use of our parks that's prescribed. And our job is to protect our parks so that other people can enjoy them going forward. Everyone can protect.
Well, it's really beneficial to have two city council members here tonight to hear all of this.
It is.
I feel like that's been we've shared. I'm also really cognizant of the time. We are usually so good at, staying pretty well to the agenda. Tonight, it kind of blew up a little bit. I apologize, that's on me. I apologize for that. But I do know that we have to get you something for community recreation. So I'd like to move on to that.
Thank you. I think this is important. That's why I value this board so much. It's a pressing issue. And so thank you for that time. I really do. I have the presentation, depends on, and I can flip through it. You guys already saw it.
We've seen it.
Yeah, but it's just essentially and I can even forward it for the sake of time. I will do that.
It's online.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.
I like this group. I'm very interested.
But essentially, it's when I say 50-50, it's not 50-50, but when you look at where we were originally, it is, right? And I think the part that was interesting is that there has been an increase in interest, but there's still, I read through every comment, and I even highlighted them. I did actually twice, and then I color coded. I was not going to go and count everyone, but I found that there was 4 themes, almost 5. There was ones that are just of support in general, and support of it for a lot of just a desired need. The other one was high is the cost, right? For those who are on fixed income, those who don't see the value with having to pay a tax and understanding how rec centers operate and having to pay a fee on top of it. That was another theme. The next one was just, I want you to spend money on other things, even though money doesn't distribute that way within the city. But I'm actually going to share this with all of our departments because some of the feedback is just good for everybody to know. There's still the stuff that we can fix Highway 43. I mean, I would love that too. But
Can we get a Trader Joe?
Right, one day.
I worked on that.
So
The coyote.
yeah,
Pretty
that's
much.
right. So spending money on other things. There was also a group of people, a lot less, that just said, we just don't need it. I just don't see the value for myself in it. And there was a lot of people that said, we still want a pool and I wouldn't support it without a pool.
Yep.
I was encouraged, and I did not intentionally go through and count them because it's not what, I didn't want to get numbers in my head and start, because this was based on what, there were some marks that had I support it, but with a pool. But when you kind of flip through it, you can kind of see there's a lot of pink and there's a lot of blue and a lot of orange, and so I think the thought is from council, council can speak, you're here, but that there's enough interest, it's part of our Parks Master Plan, and if there are people who are wanting to look for some additional funding, we don't know if that would be successful or not, but that is an opportunity that certain council members are interested in doing too, and seeing there's such momentum with it, and there's an interest that's increased. And you'll see even in my staff report, I didn't say, I mentioned that I didn't think we'd be able to pass for a bond in November. So I'm honestly very neutral in it. As I've tried to be through all of this, is what the community's desires on both sides of it. And so the question at hand is the board interested in helping seeking funding? If the answer is no, that's fine. There may be individuals as part of the board that might want to be a part of what the mayor mentioned is like a summit of coming together to start exploring. A couple of, let me think of what else I wanted to make sure you knew. So it is interesting, the reading. You guys do have that full document. This is all of the comments that came out of it, right? I did learn after reading that there's still quite a not understanding of where we're at in the process. A lot of people that filled out the survey, clearly it was their first time even knowing that this was occurring, right? So some of the things, why aren't you using the schools? Why aren't we partnering with Lake Oswego? We don't need this. Where is it going?
Or so, for kids.
Yeah, right. Oh, and that it's only for kids. Adults still couldn't see what that could bring to them. And that was what I mentioned to the council, that if we were to look for funding further, there has to be more of this messaging of what is this to us. I even looked at Lake Oswego is a recreation center with a swimming pool. There's not community spaces. And the other thing was that people thought that I was told I was a bad director, and
Yes,
I wrote that.
thank you very much. But people thinking that the city, our department's pushing this initiative, that it's not, that it came from a community ask and from council, and so understanding that what's been designed has been what the community has asked for in this concept. So how do we morph what that is so people can see themselves in it, or do they still want it? So I think when I'm looking at, if there's a group that does want to move forward, there's this continued education outreach that I think of, like Vision 40 is having 2 years to have that conversation and build that vision. We had like 6 months, and really like 2 months when we started getting all the information. So that is ultimately the question. And I think council, if you guys have anything to add to that, by all means. Did I do a good summary today? A good summary? Yeah.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
I didn't have much to add.
I was unfortunately quoted in the paper saying what everyone kind of was giving off, which was that there wasn't a lot of enthusiasm when this was presented in the result of the surveys, or within the chamber that day. And it I guess I wasn't really sure how to solve that problem because there is that segment of people who are excited about the possibility of having a rec center in West Linn finally. Keep in mind, we've been discussing this since 1936. That is a fact, and it's really weird.
I know.
But
That's why they quoted you.
yeah, and well, that didn't get quoted. That'd be a great quote.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to see it be a situation where we passed this with 50.01%, and then we have 49.99% of the city kind of bitter about it or just not interested. I don't know how we change that. I think that's a group discussion, how we would get there if we wanted to get there. But also, if we look at the cost of this, and I'll just be honest, I don't know where I got this notion, but I was thinking it'd be more like 36 to 40 million. I don't know if anyone else thought that, but that was
The
in my
one from 2015
Yeah,
was
well,
24 million with.
Sure. Yeah, there you go. I'm not
So
sure where
I'm
that.
thinking you were going to get, almost 3 times.
Yeah, I think that was a big shock and changed the discussion a lot around the city. I know the polling kind of indicated that if the cost came down a little, it wouldn't move the needle for a lot of people. But that ship has already sailed. We've already
Yes.
got the price out there, and I think we lost some support as a result of that. But a solution that I started thinking about was beyond just donors, like someone who has a spare $1 million and really wants a plaque out front. There are many tech companies that I think could make good corporate partners. And this is just kind of an idea out of nowhere. This would need exploring. But from the physical activity side of it, someone like Nike or Adidas might be able to provide a certain element of features or technology that could be mutually beneficial in some way, and kind of shore up that big gap in funding. And it doesn't even have to be limited to that. It could be all sorts of things. But I think exploring just individuals who might want to donate money would be short-sighted when we might be able to find corporate partners as well.
It sounds like what you're asking for is, should there be a task force that goes out looking for additional, has that discussion?
Yeah.
Not to have that discussion tonight, but should there be that? And I think there might be a group that's interested in that, which would be great. My only concern is it can't be supported fully by staff.
It wouldn't be.
It's
I talked with John about that, and
Yeah.
don't forget your suggestion you sent me too. Yeah, that would be, it would have, first off, I don't have the purview for it. First off, there'd be, we would have to be, that's why there would be like that summit with some of the council members and looking at who could be the person to be able to start, and not necessarily a citizen, but who out of an organization are looking at, is there wanting to be a foundation? Is there something that we need to bring on board to help facilitate or guide that kind of mission? So thank you for that. I would love to figure that out, but I wouldn't be able to have the time.
And that's actually a big, huge skill set. 'Cause I used to work with OHSU Foundation.
Yes.
That's not just like, oh,
I can do it.
No.
No, that's exactly it.
that's the whole, it's getting money from wealthy people and corporations. That's a whole business, and that's huge. It's not like, hi.
Yeah,
And you
no.
have to form the entity.
Yeah.
And you have to file the.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So I think the mayor was interested in talking with the group. And again, it doesn't, definitely not to put you on the spot to say the parks board is going to do this. You may have decided you're going to or not do it as individuals, but I can report back, and you don't have to necessarily let me know today, but know that we'd be reaching out to say who is interested in this. We would connect you with the mayor is how I'm seeing, at least I could be told differently, but then to go from that part of how would that conversation start? It's the start of the conversation.
I don't think it's a bad idea to have the conversation, and from because there are people who really want this to happen. That's just one more avenue where we can say, we tried everything, you know, and I think that's, I think people, and I certainly appreciate Westland because they do listen to the citizens, you know, I'm totally impressed by that. And, you know, people do give their all. And it, to me, that will just show one more due diligence in this project before it goes wherever it goes.
If it goes away, it's gonna come back. I mean, history
Yeah.
just kind of
Yeah.
dictates
Yeah,
that.
hold on,
I'd be really
Tammy.
surprised if it never came back again within the next
100%.
20 years.
100%.
So I feel like in some way, we need to take a definitive step that establishes something. So we're working towards it. But I don't think not working on it at all, just as a general principle, as the city grows and will continue to grow, is possible. I don't think it's feasible.
Well, we spent a lot of time and effort creating what we had.
Right.
And
The
money.
difference is,
Money, that's, yep.
Well,
Yeah.
and like somebody, I think from MIT said, there's a great appetite in the community for this,
Yeah.
but no one wants to pay for it.
Yes,
Other
But-
people
That's
can be.
sort of the bottom line of
Right.
pretty.
where we are today.
There was also that misunderstanding about assessed value versus
Yes,
market
Huge.
value.
It's very
And
huge.
Big deal.
Mr. Real Estate mind here kind of started ticking again and thinking, well, that could be like, it could be as much as 40 or 50% difference in terms of what people are assuming they
but it
pay.
still turns out to
It's
be a lot of money.
Well,
But
and I mean,
half as much is a significant number, and
It
I
is.
think that moves the needle for a number of people who
But
thought
it's like,
differently.
this is how much your property tax bill is gonna go up
So
every year for the next 20 years.
What I'd like to say is, can individuals, let the mayor and, Megan know if this is something that you want to individually pursue? I think that Parks Board has enough on its plate that it can't be the sole solution for this.
I agree.
But individuals, if you want to continue to contact Megan and the mayor, does that work?
and even just for an
And me, please.
introductory kind of meeting, you know, just to see, I think that's where, just to, even if you're not certain that, but that's, I think, trying to figure out what next steps could be.
I'd be
Um,
interested in the introductory
yeah.
piece,
Mhm.
see where that stands in terms of the council. I'd be interested in participating in that.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'll share that with the mayor and with the council too. So, can I please thank you all for how much time you have given to this project. I mean, it is a lot of hours. It's not been my only focus, but it's been a main one, and I've been very thankful that the city hasn't put me in the position of pushing this through. We really are trying to build that trust of asking what people want. And how do we get that, and how do we find the right balance from the cost of it to what the actual item is? And so I've learned a lot, not only from what the community center is, but even activities that people were looking for, and really brainstorming some other options. So I really thank you for all your effort, because I couldn't have done this alone. And there was things I learned along the way in my new role. So thank you all very much. Tara's been behind the scenes with the staff, is like marketing and getting that stuff out there. It's really taken a real big team effort. So,
Well,
thank you. I appreciate it.
I want to recognize the staff for doing an
Yeah.
outstanding job, being both objective and enthusiastic, really hard to do. And wrangling MIG and all of the other consultants, outstanding job. I can't imagine anything that could have been any better. And, you know, at the end of the day, we're here for our community, not necessarily our own agenda. And so the fact that we're listening to the input is important and critical. Love to see it continue, and recognize that it will be a challenge and something people will have to make an investment in. So,
One thing, so to wrap this up, there will be a final report that's being put together of all of our outreach, and I really like how Ryan said it. It's that, so it documents what has occurred. So if it continues on or picked up at a later date, that it's a very clear message of what we had heard and what happened. It's also going to be formatted in a way that essentially by part of it, one document will be 11 by 17. So for those who are wanting to go out, that marketing toolbox we had talked about
Right.
will be there so people can show the full renderings, show all the out. So there's going to be, so we're kind of taking it into two directions so that it can be used as a tool for now or for the future. So that if you go to meet with a Nike executive that you know, that you'd have something to show them. And
The few Nike executives that are left.
yeah, well, and the thing with it again is being fully transparent of the concerns. And I mean, the pool is another piece of this too, right? It's not like that went away. And so I want people to feel like they were really heard. And that piece will be coming in the next few weeks or so
Right.
to have
That's a
as
good
an
idea.
ongoing document for
Yeah.
us. So,
Thank you for how much work you put into
Oh.
this. Thank you for how much time you put
They've
into
given
this.
a lot.
Megan has done a lot
There, well, it's
And
been
for
everybody.
staff. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Huge amount, but you guys have given your extra time and I really appreciate, and especially when not knowing what the community response to be, you put yourself out there to help engage. So
Well, I think we have some idea of what's a community. But I
the
mean,
needle did move though, and I think somebody wrote
yeah,
that,
It's in
their first comment was demographics have shifted enough in West Linn since the previous failed attempt that for this person felt like it was the right time, but I think that is something the way.
Yeah.
But again, I was really happy with the feedback we got, except for my number 7-Eleven.
I'm gonna hack in there and I'm gonna delete that and you're never gonna think about that again.
That's
Because that is
okay.
one of 1,400
That is
comments and I
totally
bet there are a
fine.
couple that are complimentary of
Oh,
you.
it's meaning the part, that's, any good feedback is great. That told me, again, reading these, when I really did read them all, is that there's still a not understanding of what this process was. And what I did learn talking to somebody is that, and even as a member of this community, you have to choose to engage in your community. If you choose not to, you're going to not necessarily know what's going on. So no matter how many blasts we put out, how many mailers we send out, posters, it's our responsibility to choose to be engaged in it. And so that's what we can do our best.
I don't know.
I know 7-Eleven Day today too. So
free
free Slurpee, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I think that was for that topic, that is where I'm at. So if you can reach out to me to let me know if you're interested, just even to have a conversation, no commitment. But I think it will give the mayor a chance to kind of know and counsel what this may look like moving forward. Okay.
I'm always ready for the conversation.
Yeah, I don't even know how it would go
Yeah.
myself,
Yeah.
right? I don't even necessarily know how you start
Let's hear
tackling
it.
that. Mhm.
Let's hear it.
But like, I know what Karen's saying, that's a skill set. I know that, yeah.
It's an industry.
It's an industry.
Yeah, so the people that we need from the community are people who have experience
Right.
getting money from them.
Well, there may be somebody that would be able to partner, that's it, but just even people who are interested in 100%, yes. And I think we met somebody at one of our open houses, Bob, who was very interested in that, who has that experience too, so.
Yeah, I can't remember his last
I
name.
have
Oh,
a
good.
contact of me keeping him, McCarthy, yeah, keeping him, yeah.
So, Kara, I'm also looking at our agenda, and is there the
You have a minute and a half.
Please come to the fair.
Sure.
Like, less than 25 minutes.
That's right.
The,
I'll bring my grandson on Saturday.
the fair's coming up. What do we need to know?
We've got a full list of events, so you can check our website out, the schedule. It's happening. So
Media,
9:45, first
newspaper.
coordination.
Everywhere.
So I do have one thing that I would need your approval on. So last meeting we did you guys made a motion for the naming of the stage for the McIntyre stage in honor of Mayor
Nice.
Larry McIntyre. So the Historical Society came back, Beth and Roger, and they asked if at all possible, you could add the date that he was mayor on the plaque. But that would mean another motion, you'd have to make another motion. So I just made a mock-up of what they requested after our last meeting. So
In your spare time, you did the mock.
She actually just did it right before the meeting. She got,
I was like, well, because so at 6:15 tomorrow, like right after coronation and the fair opens up officially, we have them on the schedule at 6:15. The historical committee is going to come out. Larry Stanley's going to be there.
Nice.
So they're going to present the naming of the stage. So this is just a mock-up until it's
official because we didn't have time to get a real.
When I first saw that, I thought, that's only like a 3-year-old.
Yeah,
That's
you
all
don't
we
live
can
very long.
do.
He died in 1986.
So I don't know. They were just thinking how, long he was mayor for. They thought that was
Yeah.
significant, but
Born in.
it doesn't mean.
So you could do it in honor of former mayor. That
How
would
do
be
you
another-
phrase the term? Like,
I
you
know.
could say
Sure.
elected November 8th, 1982, I'm guessing.
His reign.
Well, you
Scary.
could
Served
say
until whenever.
in honor of
Served.
Larry McIntyre
That's
and
a
then
good one.
They're
born,
1983 to
Sure.
1986.
That's it. That's simple.
okay.
Right,
But
yeah.
Larry McIntyre, born, died, mayor of West Linn, or mayor, 1983 to 86. It would add another line for his, his birth and death years.
Well, they're doing a memorial bench and plaque that the Historical Society.
It's gonna have
purchased,
that.
and it'd be up there on the field. So that is just gonna be his name and the little verbiage.
Okay.
His
In that
years of
case,
life.
we just have in honor of Larry McIntyre, mayor, comma, 83 to 86.
There you go, too.
Perfect. So just add a-
I second that.
Just move.
Just move mayor down to the next line.
Larry McIntyre, comma, mayor.
Oh,
Amy
mayor,
Reed.
yeah.
1983 to
Yeah.
1986.
Yeah.
That was like a 3-year-old that died.
Or
Yeah.
even mayor from, if we want to be extra clear, mayor from 83 to 86. But yeah, that's a simple thing.
Yeah, the
Walk
could be
around.
helpful.
Mayor of
Yeah, that's
Westland.
better. Thank you.
Yeah, that was good.
Okay. So just a motion.
You got your
Yeah.
vote today.
You're gonna
Right.
Motion is, do whatever you want, just make it look good.
Yeah.
That's fine.
It's weird to me,
That
thing,
thing.
like,
That's how we should do a council meeting.
do whatever you want.
So do you have a clear answer? Because we will have
Yeah,
to,
so
we
I'm
do
gonna
need to
take
make
out
that as a
The
written.
mayor here, I'm gonna put the mayor down here.
Yeah.
1983 to 1986.
Yeah, right, perfect.
Okay.
Great.
So this is the name of the stage.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's the stage name, so.
Cool.
So the stage name, we always talk, we were just gonna do the plaque, and then like for next year at the fair, we'd be able to, when we print our banners, be able to say the McIntyre stage, right? If we wanted to, right?
Yeah.
Right.
We could change a couple things. It was just McIntyre stage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
I'd make the McIntyre stage large. Oh, mayor, in honor of Larry McIntyre, comma, mayor, 83 to 86,
Mhm.
in small.
And just the front, large front top, and then.
Yeah,
make the-
McIntyre stage, the prominent, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, bold, yeah. That's what we're gonna change all of our verbiage on the schedule later on too,
yeah, for next year.
and the rest.
Okay, so.
Okay.
Clearly, our agenda was preempted with an emergent, topic. I'm glad that we handled the emergent topic and, had the dialogue that we did. And we demonstrated that flexibility. The, summary actions, we are going to, you're going to forward the presentation to us. And, those of us who are interested in maybe a summit on the rec center will contact Megan directly. And we don't have a meeting in August. Our meeting in September. I'd like to keep that as a big project review.
That would be great, because I'll have bond
That's
updates
been-
and all of that.
Preempted a
I'll
lot.
have that would be my goal too. I like that.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
that'd be great.
Good, all right. I know that we skipped additional items of interest. I do want, if there's some emergent information that is important to share, one last opportunity. If not, I'd like to recommend that we call the meeting.
Yeah.
Are we good?
Yeah, good.
Excellent.